Hello and welcome in to the first episode of the Around the Leagues podcast with Brady B. I will be your host, Brady Bauer, and I will be your one-stop shop for all things sports takes, stories, and recaps. After watching and following sports for as far back as I can remember, I finally have my very own podcast to get out all of my thoughts, reactions, and hot takes to the UIC student body, professors, staff, and anybody else who's listening in on the Radio FX app or on the UIC radio website. Before getting into the ball part of the pod, I want to thank everyone at UIC Radio who has given me this opportunity to talk about the thing I love most, sports. Thanks to everyone here today who helped me set up this production. I very much appreciate it. Today's episode is going to be mostly focused on how I started loving sports, my favorite teams. I'll go through my history of fandoms with the Cubs, Bears, Blackhawks, and Bulls, as well as some other moments that have capsulated my attention as a sports fan. Sports has always been something I loved. It started playing tackle football at age 5, and I was in love with it ever since. My dad was a high school football coach, and my brother also played football, so it was just something I was around constantly, but it was never forced upon me. When I was younger, my grandfather also had season tickets to the Bears, so I was lucky enough to go with him and the rest of my family to many Bears games. My earliest memory as a Bears came from players such as Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, Devin Hester, and so much more. I remember going to my first Bears game. It was the 2010 season, and Devin Hester was doing what he did best, terrorizing the opposing team's special teams unit. In this game, he had 249 return yards, casually breaking the record he had previously already set himself. This game was crazy looking back on it when I was watching it. The star for the Vikings on the first play of the game was Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson has been all around the league, so I kind of forgot that he was at this game when I was there. So looking back and watching the highlight, it was pretty funny seeing him return it. And then I totally forgot this happened in the game. The next kickoff, Devin Hester took one about 70 yards right back at the Vikings. So that was my introduction to Devin Hester. Everyone talks about him. The Bears announcer, Jeff Joniak, has this famous saying going, "Devin Hester, you are ridiculous." And that's literally my first reaction to him, was he was ridiculous. And another amazing moment being a Bears fan was when I actually got to meet Devin Hester. I went to Bourbonnais Bears training camp back when they used to camp there, and I had good tickets that got me access to the field and to the players. So one of the days when we were there, I see Devin Hester come walking past with all the equipment on. All the other players around, all the other fans around, were asking for pictures, autographs, all this stuff. I didn't need I got an autograph from him, but I wanted something more. So what I did, he was wearing his towel, the ones players put on their pants to wipe off sweat or anything. Some players just do it for show. That's besides the point. Anyway, Devin Hester was walking past, and I shot my shot with him. I go, "Devin, can I get your towel?" And sure enough, he walked past like 3 feet, turned back around, and he gave me his towel. I was smiling the rest of the practice, even though it was about 105 degrees out and I was sweating profusely. It was amazing. I think about that every single second, and that's why I'm telling it in my first podcast episode. After that day, I played football, obviously, so I took that same towel and wore it into the game. Not a good decision because I got tackled in a mud pile and the towel was kind of destroyed. So after that day, I never used it on the football field again. But I made sure everyone knew I still had it. In show and tell, when you'd bring stuff in and show the class, I had my Devin Hester towel. So I was showing that off to a bunch of other kids my age that probably had no idea who Devin Hester was at the time. But it was my proudest item that I owned at the moment, so I was making sure everyone knew that I had it. Since then, everyone probably knows life as a Bears fan has been borderline depressing. Besides our 2018 to 19 season, it has been the same thing over and over again. Well, honestly, the 2018 season was filled with heartbreak as well. We literally had a new football phrase created after us called the double doink. If you're not familiar with the double doink, let me break it down for you a little bit. The Bears are in the divisional round of the wild card round of the playoffs, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, we had them on the ropes. Mitch Trubisky, our quarterback that we drafted over Patrick Mahomes, that's another story we can get into another day. Mitch Trubisky was our quarterback, and we were down, and we needed a field goal to win the game. Mitch Trubisky did his job, got us downfield, making connections with Allen Robinson, Eddie Royal, Trey Burton, other players on the Bears. We're in field goal range. A field goal would literally win us the game and move us on to the next round. The vibes could not be better right now. Cody Parkey steps up for his kick. As he's kicking it, the Eagles call a timeout. And my rule is if you get iced as a kicker, you never kick the ball. You always wait to kick it. I don't even want a fake kick. You let that thing go. You just don't kick it. Whatever you do, don't kick it. Well, Cody Parkey kicked it. There was a timeout. It went in, but obviously the timeout stopped it from being good. So we had to re-kick again. After that moment, same setup, same position on the field. Cody Parkey's going to kick the ball again. Hits the left post, then the right. Double doinks it, and it doesn't go in. That's where the double doink comes from. It's now every time you watch football on Sundays, if a doink happens, they'll be, oh, it's a double doink, double doink. Enough with the sad moments from the Bears causing pain in my life. Let's talk about the Chicago Cubs. If you're listening to this right now, the Cubs have sadly been eliminated from the playoffs, courtesy of the Milwaukee Brewers in a 5-game series. We had a winner-take-all matchup, but we could not take it all. We came up just short. 1-1 game. Next thing you know, we're on the ropes. 2-1, 3-1. The vibes are dead in Milwaukee Stadium. But anyway, getting back to the good moments that we have as Cubs fans, that one being the 2016 World Series. Of course, just like all Chicago teams, winning that was never easy. We had to come back against the Giants in the divisional round in one of the best baseball games I ever watched. Down 5-2 in the ninth inning, Ben Zobrist, the ultimate glue guy, got things going with an RBI double. Then the youngster of the team, Wilson Contreras, came through with an RBI. Then Almago, Javier Baez, drove in another run, giving the Cubs some insurance. It was literally one of the scenarios you dream of. When your team is down late in the game, you have the feeling that nothing is going to go your way and that it's going to be the same result over and over again. But just like the Cubs broke the curse of the Billy Goat, they broke the same thought process that I had about losing these games. That feeling did come back, though, in Game 7 of the World Series, where we had to sit through a 20-minute rain delay to get to the result we were hoping for. That was one of the best nights of my life, and probably the best night for a lot of Cubs fans. Cubs were down the series 3-1, and they came back to win the series to get their first World Series in 108 years. Eighth grade me was there at the rally with amazing seats and was just smiling ear to ear after every speech the players gave. I remember the president of the Cubs, Theo Epstein, getting on the mic and asking the crowd, when was the last time you won a World Series, Chicago? And everyone in the crowd was so used to just being the lovable losers that we were known to be. And everyone just went, 108 years ago. But he came back and said, it was Wednesday, baby. And that got the crowd going because everyone thought, oh my God, 108 years this, 108 years that. But we broke it, and we didn't even realize that we even broke it. I just thought that was a magical moment for the Cubs. As Chicagoans, in hockey, we've also had the experience of the Blackhawks dynasty. I'm not even gonna lie and sit here and say I was following the Blackhawks before they started going on their cup runs, but once they did, you could not stop that magic. Luckily for luckily for me, my dad worked security at the hotels that the Blackhawks would go to after the Stanley Cup celebrations. So I had some inside access to the players and I got to talk and meet with some of them. One of the best moments was when I got autographs from the goalie of the team, Corey Crawford, David Bolin, Christopher Volsteek, Nicholas Jomberson, and Patrick Kane. The Patrick Kane one is just like the Devin Hester one. I'm never going to get rid of that. I know exactly where it is in my house right now, and that's not going anywhere. I'm going to keep that for as long as possible. But at that rally, one thing that happened that I really appreciate and look back on a lot is my favorite player, Nicholas Jomberson. He wasn't a well-known player on the team. If you ask most Blackhawks fans, most of them, not speaking for everyone, but most will probably say that they forgot about him. But not me. He was a scrappy player. Couldn't you couldn't forget about him. He was everywhere on the ice. He would be sliding, taking pucks off the mouth, the shoulder, the leg. This guy probably has bruises to this day from all those pucks that hit him. Well, anyway, he wasn't by the players at the hotel I was at. So basically, they were all in the lobby with like a rope guarding them. So they had that, and then I was on the other side with my friends. And Nicholas Jomberson was nowhere to be found, and I wanted his autograph so bad. I went there with that intention on my mind, so I wasn't gonna leave there without it. And I didn't want to get my dad in trouble, like get him in trouble at his job. So I didn't want to go like sneaking around like Zach and Cody or something and like get Mr. Mosby mad at me. So I my dad's friend who was in school to be a sports agent at the time was there, and he worked for my dad, and he went up to where the other players were. They were up at the bar area drinking, and obviously I was too young, I couldn't be up there. So he went up there and brought my jersey that I had on to the player that I wanted the autograph for. About 10, 15 minutes later, I'm sitting there. I'm like, did my jersey just get stolen? Like, did this guy just finesse me? But I look over and I see him coming down the stairs with my red Blackhawks jersey. And he's walking right towards me. He turns the jersey around and shows me the back of it. And there is the autograph from Nicholas Jomberson. It was no, not like a terrible autograph. Like, oh, your autograph is terrible. Like, how could you do that? It was just like some celebrities and athletes, they're like, it's just so cool how their autographs look. They just make it look like two little squiggles, but somehow spells out their name. That's besides the point. I got the autograph from him, and that was a great moment that I'll literally never forget. I have pictures from that day still with my friends downtown in all of our Blackhawks gear. The streets were just filled with red and white Blackhawks jerseys. I'm waiting for the same. I'm waiting for another celebration or parade just like that. Those in the Blackhawks ones, literally the vibes there cannot be matched. At least 75% of the city took off work and were just living their life downtown. Another team that I have a soft spot for is obviously the Chicago Bulls. Unlike older generations of Chicagoans, we have not been blessed with the dynasty of Michael Jordan. We haven't had the legacy of players like Dennis Rodman or Scottie Pippen. We've kind of just been mediocre, getting by. And with the new play-ins, it's only getting worse. But before we had the play-ins and the mediocrity in Chicago the past 5 or so years in terms of basketball, we had Derrick Rose, Chicago's own. I haven't met one person in Chicago or Illinois that is not a fan of Derrick Rose. There's literally nothing you could say to me to get me to say anything bad about Derrick Rose. I'm the biggest Derrick Rose fan on this planet, and I will live by that for the rest of my life. I remember my first earliest memories of that Bulls team was getting home from baseball practices and turning on the Bulls games to see Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Luol Deng, Carlos Boozer, and the rest of that squad taking on the Heat. And they had players like LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Mario Chalmers, Ray Allen, so many more. And it was a battle every time we went up against them. I say we like I was on the team, but as a little kid, that's how invested I was. I was giving my sweat and tears too. I was right there with them. If I could be on the court, I would have been on that court as a sixth defender, just taking charges from LeBron and just messing with LeBron the whole time via like Lance Stevenson blowing in his ear. I would be doing all that just to get LeBron to lose. That's how much of a LeBron hater I am. If you're listening to this and you're a LeBron fan, I know there's a lot of you out there. I do respect LeBron. I do, I promise. I just think Jordan has him beat, and LeBron is too crybaby to get the respect he deserves. That's besides the point. Going back to the Bulls and the Heat series during this time were some of the best basketball games I've ever watched. Getting home from baseball practice and turning on the game, most of the time the Bulls would be losing, and little Brady would be sitting on the ground in front of the TV crying, wondering how this happened, questioning how my life was so terrible, even though that's the worst thing that was happening to me right now was my basketball team that I was not even on losing to a rival. But yeah, that was my first reaction to the Bulls and Derrick Rose getting walloped by the Heat in back-to-back playoff series. And then, we have the Derrick Rose injury, which I remember where I was that day. I was at another baseball tournament. It was a rain delay, and me and my friends and my baseball team went back to the cars to listen to the Bulls game against the 76ers on the radio. During this time, I remember one of my friend's dads and one of the coaches of our team saying Derrick Rose got hurt. And I thought he was joking because in my eyes, Derrick Rose was a superhero that had no ability and nothing in his body that could hurt him. But sure enough, I remember the call. Kevin Harlan and Reggie Miller on the call. I think it was a TNT game. Here's my impression of the Kevin Harlan. This hurts me to do, so Derrick Rose fans, turn away if you're here. Derrick Rose is holding onto his knee and down. He's down. I remember hearing that. It was on commercials. It was everywhere. You'll see people do YouTube videos now. What happens if Derrick Rose never got hurt? And that is a lead. That's the lead sound they use to do it. And it's just embedded in my memory. I don't think I'll ever get that moment out of my head. Once again, I'm glad these are some of like the trauma that I carry with me. Nothing crazier. But besides the point, it was tragic seeing your childhood hero and childhood athlete go down, knowing now that he was never the same player that he was. Sticking with the Bulls, lucky enough, shout out my dad, he had some good connections for me sports-wise. He was able to get me, my mom, my sister, and himself courtside tickets to the Bulls game. Peyton, my brother, if you're listening, I'm sorry. You're on a school trip to New Orleans, so you were not available to go to that game, but wish you were there, bro. Anyway, so Derrick Rose was warming up. It was around March time. It was past the prime Bulls days when they were going to the conference championships. It was when Doug McDermott was one of our bright spots of the team. So I was at the game. Bulls were wearing their all green St. Patrick's Day uniforms. Derrick Rose was not injured at the time, and he was doing his warm-ups in the warm-up line. And obviously, warm-up lines walk right past the scorer's table, which is where I was sitting by, like right behind there. Derrick Rose came walking past, and I gave him like a little, I said, "What's up, Derrick?" And then he gave me a head nod and like a little wave with his like 2-3 fingers. And it was amazing. I talk about that still. That's up there with the Devin Hester moment. You see the guy on TV your whole life, and then you're literally 15 feet away from him and you're not talking to him, but he knew who I was for a moment. That's what I took from it. Derrick Rose knew who I was for a moment. And that's all I need. That's all I need to really say about that before I go too fanboy. But the Bulls aren't the only basketball team in the NBA that I enjoy. Another team that I have a fascination for is the Oklahoma City Thunder. If we're being honest, whenever people ask me my favorite sports teams, I always put the Thunder below the Bulls because the Bulls are from Chicago. But deep down, I think I'll give the edge to the Thunder. Just like Derrick Rose, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook are the major reasons why I like basketball. I had all their clothes, all their jerseys. Kevin Durant had socks that came out, like elite socks. I had those with his face on it to match with his shoes that I wore in my basketball games. I was obsessed with Kevin Durant. He was literally a do-it-all player. He's 6'10". He could shoot, he could dribble, he could drive, play defense. He literally does it all. That's why I liked him. And then that when he did the MVP speech and thanked his mom, that was amazing. Like you cannot forget about that. He's just a likable guy, and he did have his moments. One of them being when he left the Thunder. We had a 3-1 lead on the Warriors in the 2016 conference finals. We were playing great ball, but then we blew that 3-1 lead. Absolutely tragic. I remember I was at my friend Mickey's house watching it with all my friends who don't care about the Thunder. I was the only one, like I said, who cared about them more than the Bulls, mind you. So I was overreacting to every shot that went up, every missed layup, every missed shot. I was running around this kid's house just like I was out of my mind. That's how I am when I watch sports though. I'm not going to lie. I get into it. I like stand up, walk around, pace a little bit. It brings better vibes, I feel like. I feel like I'm somehow affecting the game in a way. Well, that didn't affect this game because the Thunder lost and we blew that 3-1 series lead. And the downfall of it was what really bothered me. I'll never forget the day. It was July 4th, 2016. I'm in 8th grade. Summer day. Gonna go out and enjoy it with my friends. Go play some basketball. Go do our 7-Eleven runs and our Subway runs, which we did every single summer day. But that was put to a hold when I got a notification from Bleacher Report on my phone that said All-Star Kevin Durant is signing with the Golden State Warriors. This wasn't even a possibility that crossed my mind. It was unheard of for a player to go from a team that they just lost to join them. Everyone was saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Kevin Durant was referred to as a snake quite a bit. City of Oklahoma turned on him. They turned on their first love. Kevin Durant was more than just a player to that city of Oklahoma. He was everything to them. They were expansion franchise in 2007 and 2008 season via Seattle. Kevin Durant came from the Seattle Supersonics to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the basketball in Oklahoma City was brand new to everyone. And I'm not a resident of Oklahoma, obviously, but I feel their pain. Having a player that you watch since he was 19 years old to about 27, and then he just leaves you for a team that you're battling with to be the next face of the league, contenders against each other for the next 5 to 10 years. It was just a terrible look for Kevin Durant, and I took action against him. I had his jersey, a blue Oklahoma Kevin Durant jersey. I took it into my backyard in the fire pit, took lighter fluid and matches, and burned it. At least I tried to burn it. It was like one major burn hole through the back of the jersey, and the rest of it was just burnt to like a crisp, and it just looked so bad. So I just threw it out. I didn't even burn it all the way. I wanted to. I truly wanted to, but I really didn't know how to start the fire. So it was just it was kind of a failure, but it helped me in the mind, helped my mind get react to it. Uh, but yeah, that's how I finally like realized that sports people, there's no like no one in sports. Not I'm not saying they don't care about the fans. They're doing what's best for them. It's a business, like everything's a business. That's what it took me a little bit to realize. So I can't really be mad at Kevin Durant right now anymore because now I love him again. Like after he left the Warriors to go to the Nets, I got my love back for Kevin Durant. Even though everyone would tarnish his legacy and say those rings never counted, they counted. He was the MVP of the finals 2 times. That counts in my eyes. I don't really care what anyone has to say about it. Kevin Durant is a borderline top 5 player in the NBA history. Besides Steph Curry, he has changed the way players play basketball. Nowadays, you see people like Wembanyama, Brandon Ingram, Modest Buzelis from the Bulls, all these point forwards that are 6'10 and lengthy, running the offense for their team. Kevin Durant started that, and he did a damn good job of it. The last team I have an affinity for is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish football program. This is most people should probably know that Notre Dame and Chicago go hand in hand. That's like their number 2 city, besides Indiana. Cities, of course, that interacts with them and supports them. So many people from around where I live and in the city of Chicago like Notre Dame. So it's a huge deal. I started liking them because my dad liked them, obviously. He has a tattoo for them, which I'll be getting hopefully down the road sometime soon. But Notre Dame is one of my favorite teams. Probably besides the Bears, they're my team. I absolutely love them. Everything about them. Notre Dame, when I was first getting introduced to them, it was wonderful. They were a great team. First experience I had was 2012 BCS championship against Alabama. We got rolled by the Roll Tide of Alabama. It was over before halftime. I remember my best friend growing up was an Alabama fan. And at this time, I didn't have an iPhone. I had a track phone. Excuse me. And growing up, my best friend, he was an Alabama fan. I was a Notre Dame fan, and 2 of them happened to go up against each other in the national championship game. I didn't have an iPhone. I didn't have an iPad or anything to communicate with him, but I did have his phone number, and I abused the track phone minutes to talk trash to him about Notre Dame and how they were going to beat Alabama and how he was going to be sad tomorrow morning at school and Notre Dame was going to reign over everybody. But I was so wrong, and not only was I sitting there in front of the TV once again questioning everything about my sport fandom, but I also was sitting there with no minutes on my phone because I used all of them to text him about Notre Dame and how they were going to beat his team. And then I was coping and coming up with all these excuses after we lost about how we would have won if we had some other people on our team, if our linebacker Monte Teo did not have a catfishing case go on. I was coming up with all the excuses, bringing out all the stops to not sound like a crazy Notre Dame fan who was only clinging on to hope, but there was none to find after that. After more seasons of a Notre Dame, they were still always good, getting about 9 to 10 wins a season with their coach Brian Kelly. But Notre Dame, back in their glory days, they were winning championships at will. They were one of the best teams back in the day. Legendary players, coaches, everything. They fell off for a couple of years, and we had Brian Kelly, who was a good coach. He could never win the big games. Never, ever win the big games. If we had a top 25 matchup, we always found a way to lose. We could never clutch up and come through with the win. It was always chaos in the end of the game. I remember the Clemson game where we got a pass interference penalty. That was 2 times when they had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Both those times we could have won against them, but we did not. So Brian Kelly stayed with Notre Dame, getting us to these wins, keeping us relevant in the college football world until he decided to leave us. And it wasn't just any type of coach leaving. This one hurt a lot more. We had a chance to make the playoffs. 4 teams made the playoffs at this time. Notre Dame was right on the edge of making it. And before teams were even announced who was going to be going to the playoffs, our coach up and left us. The day before the playoff rankings came out, he was nowhere to be found. He was on a plane to Louisiana, Baton Rouge, to go and take the head coaching job at Louisiana State University. That did not sit well with anyone in the Notre Dame sphere or the college football sphere. Everyone knew it was a shady move. Everyone knew it was a crazy move to do. Your team is literally on the borderline step of making the college football playoff, a playoff where you need to win 2 games to win the national championship, and your coach leaves you. It's disgusting. I'll never forgive Brian Kelly. Every single LSU game that I watch with him now, I hope they lose. And right now, they are doing what Brian Kelly does best, losing and choking historically funny ways. He won his first week 1 game with LSU this year. He's been there for 6 or 7 seasons, and he's still just scraping by. But the LSU fans are a lot crazier than Notre Dame fans. There's these things called message boards in college football. Fans go on these private messaging apps, come up with extreme rumors, stories about these coaches and players. And the LSU one right now is going wild. People do not like Brian Kelly. They don't think he belongs in the SEC conference. And I don't disagree with them. There's other coaches in the SEC, Lane Kiffin, Kirby Smart, Shane Beamer. So many of these college coaches, they communicate with each other. They always talk about having group chats with one another where they troll each other, make fun of each other after games. Brian Kelly is never mentioned in any of these conversations because we know what Brian Kelly is. He doesn't seem like a nice guy. He seems like all he cares about is football, but if you're only caring about football, you should be able to scrape some wins together and win a championship. But Brian Kelly has shown time and time again he is not at the level of winning the national championship, even with the amount of support he gets from LSU boosters and the fans of Louisiana State University, and he still can't do it. It's just some things never change, and he's just showing that you need to be a good coach. You can't just fake buy in all these things. But after Brian Kelly got I was gonna say fired. After he just up and left us, we hired Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman served as the defensive coordinator under Brian Kelly for 1 year before he was named head coach. And the way he was named head coach, it gives me chills. The next day, after the players were sitting there wondering what the hell just happened, our coach left us when we were going to make the playoffs. It's not a good spot to be. Being a football player back in the day, or not, I say that like I'm old. When I played football, our team was pretty good growing. Like my team from age 6 to 13, we were always making the playoffs. And to think that my coach would just leave us one day and go join our rivals, which at the time was the Shabona Saints, we would never get over that. We would be talking about that to this day. And that's what's happening with Notre Dame. So Brian Kelly left. The next day, they have a meeting. All the players are in their locker room having their regular meeting with the AD. Not a regular meeting, just a meeting with the AD talking about the future of the program and where they're going to go from here. And the AD introduces their new head coach of the Notre Dame football program, Marcus Freeman. He comes opening the two double doors that lead to the locker room, and the whole team erupts. They're on one knee. They jump up, swarm Marcus Freeman, start jumping around, not lifting him up, but they pretty much could have lifted him up. That's how excited they were. They're running around the locker room, jumping up and down, chanting. This is when Notre Dame, I think, was saved for the better. Instead of the same mediocrity that Brian Kelly brought to the program, Marcus Freeman changed that immediately. Him being there in that moment for those kids, those players, when they needed it most, was amazing. It showed the type of person he was, the type of leader he was, and has continued for the last 4 seasons with him under the helm of head coach. He's done a great job of building this program up, is a great recruiter, connects with the kids, makes sure to talk with them whenever they have the chance. And that has led us to top 10 recruiting classes in the past 3 seasons. And that's what you need to be good in this college football. You need to have recruits, and you need to be able to manage the transfer portal. And Notre Dame has done that very well. This season, we went 0-2 to start the season, but been on a 4-game win streak ever since. And if we keep winning, win out the rest of the way, we will make the playoffs again. Building off the playoffs last year, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish did make the playoffs, and they hosted a first-round playoff game against the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana Hoosiers were getting too big for their britches at this time. Their coach had just came from a small school of James Madison in the Sun Belt Conference, and he went to Indiana, bring his players along with him, abandoning the program just like Brian Kelly did. And this man did all the talking, saying how they don't just beat top 25 teams, they beat up on them, even though he hadn't faced any top 25 teams that had any level of Notre Dame. They couldn't hold a light to Notre Dame. So their coach for Indiana, Kurt Cignetti, gets on game day with Pat McAfee, Nick Saban, the rest of the guys on the crew, and just absolutely going at Notre Dame in their home stadium, outside by Touchdown Jesus, talking trash about the Notre Dame of Fighting Irish. Marcus Freeman doesn't do that talking stuff. He's the most calm and collective coach you'll ever see. He'll just be smiling with his sweater vest on the sideline, holding back his tongue from yelling at the refs. Marcus Freeman's a great coach, and that's what ultimately has led to Notre Dame making the national championship last year. The games leading up to the national championship were amazing. I mentioned the Indiana one. We also faced Georgia in the next round. That game, going into it, I was pretty nervous because it's Georgia, SEC powerhouse, Kirby Smart, one of the best coaches in the country. But their quarterback, Carson Beck, was out. I wasn't that nervous about Carson Beck to begin with, just because it's Carson Beck. And if you followed them that season, he was having a down year compared to the previous year. So I was like, all right, Carson Beck, we should be able to beat him. But Carson Beck got injured a couple games before, so he was out. So we're going against Gunnar Stockton. It was going to be his first start in a college football environment. You never want to do that in the semifinal, quarterfinals of a college football playoff. It's a tough place to get acclimated to your offense, to your new team, especially when you're one of the younger guys on the offense. And it didn't help that Georgia led the country in drops last year. So having a young quarterback with wide receivers that aren't great at catching the ball is never going to be a recipe to success. And Notre Dame took advantage of that and knocked off Georgia. I'm sorry. The next game we took on Penn State in New Orleans. This was a scary game. Besides the Alabama game from 2012, this was the biggest sporting event that I have ever watched live. I was out with my dad and my uncle watching the game, and it was nerve-wracking from beginning to end. Notre Dame and Penn State were trading blows. Notre Dame's quarterback got hurt at one point, so they had to put in a freshman Steve Angeli, who held his own. He did great. He came in and did what he had to do. Led us down the field for a field goal going into halftime, and that gave us the momentum we needed to come out of the second half strong and get the victory and move on to the national championship. If you're not familiar with college football, Penn State has been known the last years to be choke artists. Their coach James Franklin is 13 in, I don't know the exact record, but his record against top 25 teams is not good at all. It's been known that it's been a meme in college football that James Franklin can't win the big one. And he showed that again against Notre Dame, losing to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame advancing to the championship. And that is where we took on Ohio State. Another one of my good friends is Ohio State fan, but I learned from the previous dilemma back in 2012, do not text anybody until after the game. Just be to yourself. Don't look stupid. Don't text. Don't boast about your team. Just let it be. And I did that, but it didn't even matter because Notre Dame found themselves in a hole in halftime. They tried to come back but fell short in that national championship game. It's always a debate with me and my family that we root for the wrong sports teams. But I said Notre Dame made the championship, so we should be glad that they got that far. And at least they didn't poop the bed too crazy and not even make the playoffs. Because if you look back on that season, Notre Dame lost their Week 2 matchup to Northern Illinois University, a MAC team that had no business being on the same field as Notre Dame. But Notre Dame played down to their competition and lost that game. But Marcus Freeman, being the great motivator and coach that he is, did not let that stop the team. And he got them right back to being the powerhouse that they were. Well, they lost in the national championship. It was a great season because college football is all about building blocks. You need to be good in order to maintain recruits. You need to be good and able to get players to transfer into your school. You can't just be content at being mediocre or else your team will stay there forever. Especially in this new age of college football, players are constantly leaving in the transfer portal. They're going wherever the money is. Whatever situation will be better for them. There's not a lot of loyalty, but if you have a coach like Marcus Freeman that cares about his players, helps them be better men, then you're going to be able to keep these players and continue to get better players in recruiting classes. We've talked a lot about my past fandoms, so we should talk about this current state of Chicago teams. I touched on a little bit earlier the Cubs losing in the playoffs to the Brewers. It was a good season for the Cubbies. Started off the season as the hottest team in baseball. The vibes were immaculate at Wrigley. The team was getting home runs. They were pitching well. Nothing could go wrong. Every single time you turn on the Cubs game, something exciting was happening. It was a must-watch TV. And then at the halfway point after the All-Star break, things started to slow down for the Cubs, and we started limping into the playoffs. The Brewers were a problem for us the whole season. They were in our division, so we were constantly fighting them to get the number one divisional seed so we can get a bye in the playoffs. But the lack of hitting down the stretch for the Cubs prevented us from doing this, and we had to play in the wild card game. Wild card game used to be a one-game winner-take-all, but now they changed it to a three-game best-of-2 series. So the first of two advances to the next round, and the Cubs took on the Padres in the wild card round, and we advanced against them, but only to go against the Brewers, where we got dominated the first two games of the series, came back to Chicago, the national landmark of Wrigley Field, and won the next two games. Everyone in the stands at Wrigley the other day for Game 4 of the NLDS said it was the loudest sporting event they've ever been to as a Chicago sporting fan and as a Cubs fan. The stadium was rocking throughout. The Cubs fed off that energy and ultimately pulled off the win and forced that Game 5 in Milwaukee. Chicago fans flocked up to Milwaukee to see the Brewers and the Cubs in Game 5, but it did not end with the result we wanted. The Cubs were bounced from the playoffs, and now it's going to be a long off season of waiting to see what the Cubs do, if they extend Kyle Tucker, if they trade for any pitchers, who they let go in free agency. Shota Imanaga, a pitcher for the Cubs, had a very bad second half of the season. They didn't even have trust in him to start the game on Saturday in Game 5. He has a contract that after year 2 he could leave if they don't offer him more money. So probably going to lose him. I think we're going to lose Kyle Tucker. So it's going to be a tough offseason that the Cubs need to take advantage of, and if they want to make the playoffs again, because the Cubs make the third most amount of money in the league, and they spend it the 13th most. So they're making this profit and then not using it to buy players. And you can't do that, especially against teams like the Dodgers that are constantly spending money and loading up on the best talent they could find. Next, we have the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are a good, fun team. Super young. Last year, they tried to make it work with veterans and young players, but did not work at all. They did not have any chemistry together. So this year, they decided to go all young. So it's just a young, fun team with no expectations, really, just trying to build something for next year, or maybe even make a good run this year and try to make it the playoffs and get that playoff experience. Blackhawks have been very bad since 2015 when they won their last Stanley Cup. But it's not just the Blackhawks. It's literally all of Chicago teams. If I have this stat here, the past years have been pretty bad, obviously. In 2024, which includes parts of 2 basketball and hockey season and last year's season-ending loss of the Blackhawks, the 5 major sports teams in Chicago, the Bears, Blackhawks, Bulls, Cubs, and White Sox, had a combined winning percentage of .375. That's a 192 wins, 319 losses. That is terrible. If you go around the country, Texas, the Rangers, they went on a run. They had the Mavericks going on the run. You have the Dallas Stars going on the run. Boom, Dallas has it taken care of. Milwaukee even has it taken care of. The Brewers, Packers, Bucks, boom, all better than Chicago. Boston, they have the Celtics. The Red Sox have been down the last couple of years, but the Celtics themselves probably have more than 4 times the amount of sport playoff wins than Chicago teams at this point. The Bulls are in constant rebuilds. They can never get it right. We never have star players anymore. We have a young team, but that young team can only get you so far, especially in the NBA today where teams are just shooting for the play-in games. They don't want to compete. They just want to do play-ins, get the money, sell extra more tickets for 2 more games, and not use that money to spend on any players. That's the MO of the Bulls, and I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon under these owners. Especially Jerry Reinsdorf, his son, is in position to take over the Bulls if Jerry happens to sell it. And right now, Michael Reinsdorf, Jerry Reinsdorf's son, has been in charge of all basketball moves regarding the Bulls. And as we have seen, it has not been good at all. We have probably the worst general manager in my history of being a sports fan. We have no star. We overpay players constantly. Patrick Williams coming into the league, I was a huge fan of his, but after 4 seasons of him, I did not need to see him get renewed to a 4-year, $90 million contract. Like, no, I did not need to see that. They just need to be better at making decisions and putting the Bulls in a better spot to be a competitive team. That's all I asked for. I want to make the playoffs, not the play-in. You just have to be a top 6 seed. Is it that hard to ask? Please, Chicago, let's get it together this year and put something special together. I'm not a White Sox fan, so their terrible season in 2024 was kind of comedic to me, but it's still linked back to Chicago. Our teams are not good, and the White Sox were a huge reason for that. They it's crazy. They set the record for most losses in a season, the White Sox. And this season the Rockies almost broke it. I was kind of hoping that they wouldn't, just so I could troll my Sox fans, but this point it's just sad because we're all in the same position as sports fans. That is a recap of all my sports fandom. I hope you guys enjoyed that, giving you a little deep dive into how I became a sports fan, what sports teams I enjoy, what sports teams I like, and how I feel about the current state of Chicago sports. Next week, we are going to be doing a recap of the Chicago Bulls' upcoming season, seeing what they could possibly do to improve and what other teams across the league have done in the offseason that will prevent the Bulls from being the championship team that they hope to be. Thank you for tuning in to Around the Leagues with Brady B. I'm your host, Brady Bauer, and I'll see you next week at 12 o'clock. Thank you.